Really, what we're intending to do is build on the events. So each of you have been to one of the events in the past, and we recognize that they're great in their own right. And obviously, Chris and Bob, you've been not only to Kentucky, you've also been to Japan. So you've seen what it can lead to in terms of the actual learning and the experience. But our goal for the boot camps is to build on this point here, that we recognize that the ideas themselves are not sufficient. So we need to have the routines that are in place. We need to have the cultural elements that go along with all of the insight and the vision that we get from the events. And that's what we've come up with these boot camps as a way to build that bridge, so that when we leave the seminar room or the workshop, that we have the opportunity to continue putting these into practice. And we do this with other companies. We just haven't necessarily bridged it yet to the FocusIn environment, which is what led us to this conclusion. And we, of course, recognize some of the reasons why we're investing in this type of learning and development, and knowing about AI and all the realities, and still managers being overloaded and pulled into firefighting and not being able to sustain improvement initiatives and all the rest. So we see the consequences of not having what we talk about in the room stick. And the goal is not just to have more tools, it's to put all these tools into a coherent system in a way that we can work coherently together with them. So just to bring it home, we recognize the event creates momentum. It's a way of getting people in the room, getting them excited. We do recognize the value of it. Of course, we would keep doing it a couple times a year in Kentucky and elsewhere around the world, but we need the systems to go along with it that allow it to sustain. So we see some drift. We see people coming back to the events. Chris and Bob, I know you've been a couple times and sent teams, so it's great, but we want to think about how do we make sure that in between those events, we're getting the real value that we can out of that time and out of those team members who attended. And the before and after, so the problem solving instead of firefighting, the KPIs, being able to review those in a clear operating rhythm rather than just coming up in a reactive sense, having improvements that are systematic and leader owned, having priorities come clearly through the strategic framework and the initiatives that are set up, and then teams being able to go through a structured problem solving. Those are some of the elements that we're building in to the 5 boot camps that you'll see momentarily. And what we're hoping to do with this journey is that, as we can see, it's part of a landscape. So the events start the journey, but really give rise to what we intend to do in between with the boot camps. And then we do offer also implementation with what we're calling sprints. So that's applying it to a specific part of the operation or business. If we need to stand up a daily management system, we can do that. Or if we need to do a certain value stream improvement initiative, we can also work on those. So that's more hands-on. And then adaptive is the platform, I should say, that allows us to maintain coaching, accountability, the behaviors of roles, responsibilities, requirements, and skills for each of our team members, and works as a really skills matrix kind of output that we can have across the organization. You guys obviously are part of some great organizations. We've had other great organizations attend the events, and our intent is to keep working across these many sectors that we do, inviting them to the programs, having them attend, but also being able to form a network of learning across what we have with the boot camps and likewise. And we notice the common thread is that each of these organizations, the large multinationals all the way down to the small mom and pops, leaders who need improvement to become managed daily operating discipline, not just a one-time initiative. So we don't want this to stop at just being a one-time thing. What does it look like in practice? Well, as I mentioned before, we do support organizations already in this vein. And likewise, they've been to FocusIn events. They've sent a number of attendees. We had that strong improvement intent, but we needed a system of how to go through escalation and follow through, and that varied by department. So then using this bootcamp content, the daily management systems, the strategic frameworks, the problem solving, value stream thinking, we were able to build that rhythm and have that accountability come through clearly, and then see that shine in the business impact and the way that we had that common routine and the accountability across multiple departments. So really turning the content and the thinking into a practical daily management rhythm. Let's get in now to the actual boot camp. So these are the 5 modules that we're starting with. The first is strategy deployment. So that's aligning on priorities. Module 2 is the daily management system. So now that we have the strategy and the direction, then how do we take that down to visibility and accountability across safety, service, cost, people? quality. And then module 3 is leader standard work. So how do we have the routines and the sustainment piece and really the behaviors that we know we need as managers and leaders. And we see this so often at the frontline leadership level, group leader, team leader, and being able to have those practices get levels deeper in the organization. Problem solving, you do the case study during the actual event, and the Gavin's case study you know of, but how do we actually take that learning and that kernel and turn it into something that can be shared across the organization, that we're all speaking the same language? And that is a real gap that we see coming back time and time again to the organization, is that people say we have all these different ways of going about problem solving, but we're not able to put that into one consistent way of speaking and executing. And then value stream improvement. So we don't cover this in detail in the events, but the opportunity to go a level deeper into some of your systems and processes and have this be a working session that you can use to look at the material and information flows and really bring those home as a way that you can identify pain points, some of the wastes, and then build on that for your problem solving likewise. So these are our 5 modules, and they all come together to build one operating system, we say. The structure of these is that we have those 5 topics plus an office hour, and we're going to run these on a monthly cadence. So essentially all 6 of these sessions will run each month. So that gives access to 72 sessions for the year if we do the math there. And the goal is that we're going to run these as a peer cohort. So people will join in and participate as a working group or a team. We'll have multiple companies represented, and that gives the opportunity to compare some of the challenges and the application across different environments. In between the sessions, in between each monthly session, we'll have a short homework assignment or a piece of actual knowledge that we'll be turning into implementation, and that'll be given to the team members, of course, for them to take forward on their own. And then likewise, you'll have access to some templates and some working tools, and also the discussion that takes place throughout the events and in between. So that's the bootcamp structure. Again, it's the 5 topics that we just covered, plus the 1 office hour taking place on a monthly rhythm, and then that's the 72 sessions for the year. And our goal with this is that we recognize we could do it more sequentially and have each of the bootcamp sessions take place over and over again, and give more opportunities. But our goal was to create an opportunity for people to attend if they need to on a monthly cadence in between being able to do some of that actual work. So want to make sure that there's a checkerboard of opportunity there to attend. All right, so the bootcamp sequence, some of the questions that we're answering. So strategy is what must improve, how we align the organization. As we can see there, daily management, do we know what the standard is, and plan versus actual? Management routines, how do leaders respond, coach, and follow up? Problem solving, how do the gaps become structured learning? And then for our flow or our value stream thinking, where should our scarce improvement capacity go? So we want to align first on what we're going to be working on, and then we're building on the cadence and the progression of how we have these boot camps set up. Let's talk about these individually, and I'm going pretty quickly, so we'll have some time for questions at the end. But first module here is around, again, the strategic framework and aligning leaders around the priorities that matter most. So we're taking the X matrix, or something that you might know of as a tool for strategic planning and prioritization, and we're building that in to a working toolkit of how do we have our annual objectives, how do we have our 3 to 5 year breakthrough objectives, breaking that down to the level of annual initiatives, and then taking that to a quarterly, monthly cadence likewise. So it's helping dimensionalize or demystify what the organization is working through, and that way you can help with strategic planning. If you're calling it Hoshin Conry, that's great, but really helping the team members understand their line of sight to the initiatives and priorities that we're working on. Module 2 is around, again, the management rhythm and exposing problems, and this is the daily management system. So our goal with this is to set up an operating system or management system that allows us to get into those daily and shift-wise meetings, and team members coming in with their problems and things that we need to escalate perhaps, but us having a clear framework, again, safety, quality, service, cost, people being those typical management pillars that we're going to start with, and then thinking about the strategic framework, thinking about the main KPIs, the sub KPIs, the process indicators, the leading and lagging indicators. So it's allowing us to actually take working examples, and we've used this in the past with having photos of the boards, and we send those around with the group, and we do some bashing drafts and some feedback based on the actual skeletons that you have going now with your daily management systems, and those allow it to iterate, and we can build on some of that feedback to create even more robust systems of communication and follow through. So the daily management system piece we know is critical because that inherent into the improvement system, and that's the intent of this module 2. Module 3, leader standard work. So we see that again as a struggle with group leaders, team leaders, shift supervisors, shift leaders, so whatever you're calling those in your organization. So leader standard work being the piece around, hey, there's 40 to 60 working hours perhaps in the work week. How do we take those and structure those in a way that we're not just firefighting and we're not just running around reactively? So the goal is here to build in team member development, build in problem solving, engagement around the daily management system, strategic objectives, have that be part of the calendar and the view, and then being able to have plan versus actual and accountability. And so that's what we see in other cohorts, is that the accountability piece comes with some of the mentorship or the peer-to-peer learning, and you guys can share around your schedules and your objectives and see how well you did executing those on that monthly cadence that we have that boot camp. So it really is more of the level deeper, down from the daily management system to the behaviors that we expect our team leaders to be displaying. Module 4 is problem solving. And again, we say we have a nice kernel and a starting point with the TBP or the Toyota business practices, but how do we actually put that into practice for the organization, and how do we take some of the language you're already using and make that more coherent and consistent across the way that we go about identifying and solving problems? So our goal is to take actual case study, real examples of problems that you're working to solve, bring these into the boot camp, have the team members work on them, and then be able to work through a first pass structured problem solving, problem statement, having the 8 steps be the backbone of that, but then also teaching some of the Toyota Kata thinking likewise, and having that really come to life is the way that we can teach that team member way of thinking so that they're able to bring in more complete problem solving to the forums like the daily management setup and the meetings therein. And then module 5 is value stream improvement. So again, how do we take a look at the material and information flows as a whole? How do we develop that current state map and then be able to work through that with an idea around shortening time, improving quality, reducing complexity, looking where those pain points exist, and also teaching some of the basics around lead time, process time, cycle time. So it's the opportunity for these team leaders and team members to have a view of what is the value stream that I'm working within, and how can I start driving improvement across that area. So those are the 5. It goes quickly through it, but hopefully I'll give you a moment here to read through what the goal is. The focus of each boot camp there is, of course, making problems visible. And we know that's the starting point. The behaviors is, how do we align? How do we respond to red? How do we become better coaches, ask better questions, improve the flow? And then each boot camp does also provide an artifact or a working output that we're going to have that comes through very clearly from these sessions. So strategic framework is having that linkage and have that strategic outline that comes about. The DMS is that tiered cadence, and how do we have a structure around daily management and the meetings that we want to schedule, but also the KPIs and the metrics that we have. Leader standard work is the actual diary or the example that I have as a team leader. What am I working through each day, each week, each month? Problem solving is really a true problem solving example, using the 8 steps as our starting point, but harmonizing that language with how you're doing it in your environment. Likewise, current state map also for value stream mapping. And then you can see some of the outcomes that we expect to be evident through each of these. So this is not just meant, this session notwithstanding, the bootcamp sessions are not just meant as lectures. They are going to be highly practical, hands-on, and allow the team members to come in with real examples from the day-to-day workplace and execute those with some of that time that we have scheduled. So what also makes it nice, I was mentioning it briefly earlier around the bootcamp setup, we can start our bootcamp progression in a different area. If you already are covering strategy, you could begin perhaps with daily management, or if you're struggling with problem solving, start there. So the point is that based on your struggle, you can choose the bootcamp that you want to focus on and start with that first. And you can jump around. So you don't need to attend all 72 of those sessions over the course of the year, or you don't need to attend all 6 of them over the course of a month. You can pick and choose which of those you'd like to join and which of those the team will attend. So we want to make it highly flexible, given the setup being virtual, but also allowing you to pinpoint and prioritize what you want to deal with. So if your challenge is inconsistent execution, strategy deployment, firefighting, the daily management system, weak accountability, we can look at leader standard work, recurring problems, And again, some of the reactive nature there, problem solving, and then poor flow productivity, or the handoffs, value stream improvement. So just giving you some starting point examples. Each bootcamp session will be structured in this way. So opening, giving some of the purpose and the why, teaching the core model, that'll be brief, call it 5 to 10 minutes around how we go through the method and the language, building and having some working time within the course of that event. And maybe we'll have some breakout sessions that the team members will go through and be working together either cross-functionally or collaboratively with other organizations. And then discussing what are the barriers, the shifts, and the first pilot choices. So based on some of the working time, how are we going to come out of this with some next steps, and then closing it with some decisions that need to be made, accountability of what's going to be completed between now and the next boot camp. And it'll be, again, highly structured. And as I mentioned earlier as well, the boot camps will repeat in the sense that each month we're going to have a very similar structure, but obviously the content will differ based on that cohort. We'll have different discussion taking place, and it'll build on itself naturally through the cohort that we have in the classroom. So it won't just be a copy paste each month. It will be iterative likewise based on, again, who we have in the room. So what does this look like likewise, and why do we choose this for our next step? It allows us to design actual outputs and routines that leaders will use. So specifically around leader standard work, that's a critical piece that we know people struggle with. The small cohort learning, the ability to share some ideas, brainstorm, get feedback in real time from coaches like myself and others that we have in the network. We do bring some deep operational experience. So we want to be able to share that around. That's the goal of the boot camps also, is that we don't just limit the teaching and instructing to the events themselves. We want to use the same type of language that you learn during the events around problem solving. We don't want to say the T word, the Toyota word too often, but we do want to also give credence to what you learned during the event and be able to build that bridge to your language, likewise for your environments. And then we, again, want to offer you support beyond the individual workshops and have this be a way that we can keep it going. So our starting point here for the investment, we want to make this approachable. So our goal is to keep it under 10,000 for a working group to join the first bootcamp cohort. So it's $99.50, and that allows annual access to the boot camps for a working team. So whatever a working team looks like for your organization, it means that they have access to all 72 of those sessions. So those 6 boot camps over the course of the 12 months, and they can jump in, they can jump out, have however many they'd like to throughout the course of that year. Again, the goal is to build the routines, have some of those working artifacts come into clear existence and focus, and then build some of that momentum for implementation. So it's that one-time annual fee of the $99.50 that'll get you started with bootcamp access. Our next step is, if you'd like to learn more, jump on a quick call with us. We can talk through which bootcamp is the right one to start with, who should be included on that working team, what challenge you want to begin with, or if you're ready to register, we can also do that likewise. So want to keep today short and sweet. I know we scheduled the hour, we don't need the whole time, but want to save a little bit of time for questions and to be able to discuss what you want to learn more about with each of these boot camps. So let me pause, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to talk through those now.
So Ben, this is this whole thing would be virtual. The boot
It
camps
is
themselves.
intended, they would be virtual, yes, Bob. And the intent is that we can have that be obviously across different geographies and whatever organizations. If there is a need for hands-on implementation, that could build into a sprint and what we're calling implementation hands-on. So that's also the thinking there. That could be a natural step from virtual with the boot camps into actually doing it hands-on in person.
Okay, and hands-on person, then it would just be, instead of having a large group of businesses, that would be specific to a certain business.
Correct. So we could scope that independently if necessary, or if it wanted to be just a natural iteration from the boot camp, we could take a look at that. So that would be a separate discussion, but that would be specific to your company, like you're saying.
Okay. And when you say, since it's virtual, so that fee or whatever, we could have, I mean, that group could be fairly large that has access to these.
Yeah. And we don't want to be too prescriptive or tell you how many you need to have or can't have over that amount. So the goal with a working team is to keep it flexible. You say whoever you want to have tune in, and that way it makes it more open for you.
All right, gotcha. Thanks.
Next, Bob, any other quick questions here?
When's your start date then?
Oh,
I'm sorry to cut you off, Natalie.
that was my
No problem.
question. So no worries.
Well, actually, the timing is perfect. So our intent was to start them from the 1st of July. So that was our goal with today's session, to get the year going as of this next month. So if you're ready to get started, we can get started as soon as tomorrow. So good question there. Yeah, we're eager to get these going. Our next in-person event is in October, so we wanted to use it also as a precursor for that coming up. Go ahead, Natalie.
Yeah, a couple of questions. So the first one is related to the maturity level of organizations. How will you, so I understand that you have different industries and you'll try to, put together team members from, I would assume, similar industries, but how about maturity levels? Because the needs are going to be very different. That is one question. And then the other is, will you have a way to measure the implementation success on the client's end tied to the program?
Yeah, great question. So with the first one, the goal with the structure is that it has that initial piece around the opening and the artifact and what we're working on. So that is not intended as generic, but that is available across organizations wherever they're coming at it from. And then the working time within each week, that will be more of perhaps myself or whatever coach is on the call floating between the different organizations, offering that specific feedback. So that's where it becomes that difference of maturity. If somebody's coming in very fresh with their team, then we could spend a bit more time with them versus another couple of groups that are farther down the path. So that's the intent also, is that we would pair up those teams that are farther along so that we're not wasting time with people trying to catch up with each other. So we have thought of that. We want to build that into the bootcamp structure. So that'll be iterative as well, but we do see it's kind of fun sometimes to learn from different teams at different points of the journey. And then the other piece in terms of measuring the outputs, I mean, that's the goal of us being together as the cohort for the full year, is that you're buying into this not only for the content and able to jump on a call every week or whatever. It's really, we want to see the clear outputs come from that. So we're going to be following along, tracking that journey also as the coaches, and then we'll schedule check-in calls as well with perhaps the managers, the leadership team that's supporting the people who are on the call with the working team. And we want to make sure that we're able to turn this into real value for the company likewise.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Chris or anybody else with a question? Mark, I know you're in and out, but any questions on your end?
No, no questions. Just we're a pretty small mom and pop dry cleaner. I attended the session in Lexington a couple months ago. I really enjoyed my time. This is just my initial opinion is just this is a little much for us. We have 5 managers that are all working managers. I like the idea of splicing it up and having different people join different sessions. I'm just not sure if it's viable for us to commit to do this and see the fruits of our labor on the back end. But yeah, just some initial thoughts, Ben.
That's fair, Mark. Yeah, and if the timing's not right, I know we mentioned starting as of July 1st tomorrow. If it's not right soon enough, then it is available to you. So we're running it on a rolling joining cycle or whatever. So think of that. And then also I would say that just having it be a primer. So if you're already as an organization trying to get a level deeper with what you learned during the workshop, allowing this to be the next step and maybe the catalyst of some of that. So it can be invaluable in that regard, just to keep it fresh, keep the thinking going.
Sure. Yeah. I guess selfishly, a question. So I'm the only one in the company that has any sort of familiarity with, what you guys are doing and your dad and things like this. And what would you recommend to get, our 5 managers off the ground? They don't even know I'm doing this right now. Like where would you recommend that we start? I mean, we haven't started
Well,
anything.
Yeah, I think the simple answer is, Mark, that's the hope with these, is that it would provide an introductory enough level of information that team members who aren't used to it yet could become versed in the thinking and versed in the actual application. And we could take it kind of baby steps, little by little, in terms of how you're going to be implementing it. So that is our vision with these, is that not only is it a bridge from between events and those leaders who are steeped in it, it's also an opportunity for people who are not as familiar on your teams to join in and get accustomed to it, perhaps leading to them going to Kentucky or going to wherever for the actual event. But we wanted to cater to both, I guess, is the short answer.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, pleasure. Chris, anything from you before we adjourn?
No, I think I'm all set. I think Bob and I will talk it over and see what we decide.
That sounds great. Yeah, no worries. Well, I'll be sending through a follow-up email with the next steps there, and look forward to any interest that you guys have, and appreciate the time today. But if there's no other questions, let's go ahead and wrap it up a little bit early.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Take care.
Bye.